When my husband died, they told me I wouldn't have to worry about anything anymore. I believed them. That was my first mistake. 2 weeks later, I found a document on the kitchen counter with my name already printed at the bottom, right above a line where I was supposed to sign away everything my husband and I had built over 38 years. I didn't say a word. I just smiled. What they didn't know was that I had already seen everything. I'm glad you're here. Follow my story until the end and tell me where you're watching from. I've learned that sometimes the quietest stories travel the farthest. The house felt different after Daniel passed. Not empty. Not exactly. Just rearranged. Like something invisible had shifted its weight from one side of the room to the other, and nothing quite settled back into place. The grandfather clock in the hallway still ticked, steady and indifferent. The same clock Daniel insisted on winding every Sunday morning, even when his hands began to tremble in his final years. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. I didn't trust myself to. His slippers were still by the bed. His reading glasses still rested on the nightstand, folded neatly beside the book he never finished. Page 214. I knew that number without looking. 38 years of marriage teaches you small things like that. The way someone breathes in their sleep. The way they fold their shirts. The exact page they'll never get to finish. People tell you grief comes in waves. They're wrong. It settles. It becomes the air in your lungs. Quiet. Constant. Unavoidable. The funeral had been beautiful. That's what everyone said. Beautiful service. Such a lovely tribute. He would have been proud. I nodded. I thanked them. I stood beside the casket and accepted hugs from people who hadn't called in years. My son, Michael, stood to my right the entire time. His hand rested lightly on my back, guiding me from one conversation to another like I might break if left unattended. To my left was his wife, Karen. Perfect posture. Perfect smile. Perfect timing. She handed me tissues before I even realized I needed them. She whispered things like, "You're doing so well, and he would want you to be strong." And I believed her. That was my second mistake. The first week after the funeral, they stayed with me. "I don't want you to be alone, Mom," Michael had said, already bringing their suitcases inside before I could answer. Karen nodded in agreement, her expression soft with concern. "It's too quiet here," she added gently. "You need people around you right now. People, not family, not quite." At first, it felt comforting. The sound of footsteps in the hallway, the murmur of voices in the kitchen, the television playing in the evenings. It filled the silence. But silence has a way of revealing things, even when it's gone. It started with small changes. So small, I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. Karen began organizing the kitchen. "I just want to make things easier for you," she said, moving dishes into different cabinets, rearranging drawers I had kept the same for over 3 decades. I smiled. I thanked her. But that night, I stood in my own kitchen and couldn't find the sugar. Then it was the mail. "I'll get that," Karen would say, already halfway to the door. At first, I thought she was being helpful. Until one afternoon, I noticed a bank envelope sitting on the counter, already opened. I picked it up slowly, running my fingers along the torn edge. "Just junk," she said quickly from behind me. "Nothing important." I nodded. I set it back down. I didn't open it again. Michael started spending more time on his phone. Not unusual, I told myself. He had always been busy, always had responsibilities. But now, he would step outside to take calls, lower his voice, close doors. One evening, I passed by the study and heard my name. "She doesn't know yet," Karen whispered. I stopped, just for a second, long enough to feel something cold settle in my chest. Then I kept walking. Grief makes you doubt yourself. It tells you that you're tired, that you're emotional, that you're imagining things that aren't really there. So I ignored it. All of it. The open mail, the quiet conversations. The way Karen's smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. Until the morning I found the folder. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, neatly placed, deliberate, as if it had been waiting for me. Inside were documents, legal papers, bank statements, property records, and on top, a single sheet. Typed, clean, official, my name printed clearly at the bottom. A signature line waiting for me. "I was going to talk to you about that," Karen said, her voice smooth as she stepped into the room. I didn't look at her right away. I kept my eyes on the paper. "What is it?" I asked. My voice sounded steady, even to me. "It's just a formality," she replied lightly. "Transferring some responsibilities. Making things easier for you." "Easier?" That word again. Michael walked in then, his expression carefully neutral. Mom, he said, as if that explained everything. It's for the best, Karen added quickly. Managing a house like this, the finances, it's a lot. Especially now. Now that Daniel was gone. Now that I was alone. Now that they thought I was weak. I finally looked up. At my son. The boy who used to hold my hand crossing the street. The man who now couldn't quite meet my eyes. Just sign it, he said quietly. I nodded. Slowly. Carefully. I picked up the pen. And I smiled. Because in that moment, they thought they had already won. They had no idea. I had read everything the night before. The next morning, the house was quiet again. Not the same quiet as before. This one felt intentional. I woke up early. I always had. Daniel used to say the house sounded different before sunrise. Said you could hear things more clearly when the world wasn't trying to fill the silence. I never understood what he meant. Until that morning. The hallway creaked as I stepped out of my bedroom. Same floorboards. Same rhythm. But something about it felt unfamiliar now. Like I was a guest in a place that used to belong to me. The kitchen light was already on. Karen was there. Of course she was. She stood by the counter, her back to me, scrolling through her phone with one hand while stirring coffee with the other. She didn't turn around when I walked in. Morning, I said. She glanced over her shoulder, smiling quickly. Good morning. I made coffee. I nodded. There was a mug already waiting for me. Not mine. Mine had always been the blue one. Slight chip on the rim. Daniel bought it for me on a trip to Vermont 20 years ago. This one was white. Plain. Temporary. Where's my mug? I asked, before I could stop myself. Karen paused for half a second. Then she shrugged lightly. Oh, I put some of the older ones away. Thought we'd refresh things a little. Refresh. I took a sip of the coffee. It tasted the same. But it didn't feel the same. Michael came in a few minutes later. Tie already on. Phone in hand. Morning, Mom, he said, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek without really looking at me. He sat down at the table. My chair. I stopped. Just for a moment. Long enough to notice it. Not long enough to say anything. Karen slid a folder across the table toward him. The same one. The one from last night. I kept my eyes on my coffee. Did she sign it? Karen asked quietly. Michael lowered his voice. Not yet. A pause. Then she will. I set the mug down carefully. Too carefully. The sound it made against the counter was softer than it should have been. I was thinking, Karen said, her tone shifting slightly as she turned toward me. We could start looking at some senior communities this week. I didn't look up. Just to explore options, she added quickly. No pressure. No pressure. Michael cleared his throat. It's just a lot for you here, Mom. The house, the maintenance, his voice trailed off. Like he didn't quite believe his own words. I let the silence sit between us. Not heavy. Not tense. Just there. I've managed it for 38 years, I said finally. My voice was calm. Even. I think I can manage it a little longer. Karen smiled again. That same smile. Polite. Controlled. Empty. Of course, she said. We just want what's best for you. What's best for you? It's a kind sentence. When it's true. The rest of the day passed quietly. Too quietly. Karen stayed busy. Phone calls. Emails. Notes written on a pad she carried from room to room like a checklist. Michael left for work, but came back earlier than usual. They spoke in low voices. Always just out of reach. Always just quiet enough. By the afternoon, I found myself standing in the living room, looking at the walls. The photos. Our life. Daniel and I on our wedding day. Black and white. Simple. Young. Michael as a boy, missing his front teeth, holding up a fish he insisted on keeping. Christmas mornings. Birthdays. Anniversaries. All of it still there. Unchanged. But something didn't fit anymore. I walked to the bookshelf. Ran my fingers along the spines. Stopped at the small wooden box Daniel kept hidden behind the old encyclopedias. He thought I didn't know about it. I always did. I opened it. Slowly. Carefully. Inside were documents. Not many. Just enough. His will. The original. Not a copy. Not a version someone had updated. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I sat down. Right there on the floor. And I read. Every word. Daniel had always been thorough. Precise. He didn't leave things unfinished. Not even at the end. Everything was clear. Everything was protected. I closed the folder. Placed it back exactly where I found it. Then I sat there for a while longer. Listening. Karen's voice drifted faintly from the kitchen. We just need her to sign. Michael replied, lower. Are you sure this is necessary? Karen didn't hesitate. If we don't do it now, we lose control. Control. I leaned my head back against the wall. Closed my eyes. 38 years. A marriage built on trust. A home built on patience. A family built on love. And now, a plan built on something else entirely. I stood up slowly. Smoothed my hands over my sweater. Walked back into the kitchen. Karen looked up first. Smiling. Always smiling. I've been thinking, I said. Michael looked at me. Really looked this time. And for a brief moment, I saw something in his eyes. Not confidence. Not certainty. Doubt. I'll sign it, I said. Karen's smile widened. Relief. Satisfaction. Something sharper underneath. Good, she said quickly. That's the right decision. I nodded. Because they still thought this was about paperwork. About signatures. About control. They still thought I didn't understand. I picked up my coffee. Took a slow sip. And for the first time since Daniel died, I wasn't just remembering. I was planning. That afternoon, I sat in the same chair I had sat in for years. By the window. The one Daniel used to complain about because the sunlight hit his eyes just after 3 p.m. I never moved it. Even after he was gone. The light still came in the same way. Soft at first. Then sharper. Unforgiving. I watched the driveway. Not because I was expecting anyone. Just watching. Inside, the house was busy. Not loud. Just active. Drawers opening. Cabinets closing. Footsteps moving. With purpose. Karen had taken over the rhythm of the house. I could feel it. Even when I couldn't see it. Around 4, she came into the living room holding her phone. Good news, she said brightly. I scheduled an appointment for Thursday. I looked up slowly. For what? She smiled, as if the answer was obvious. A senior living community. Just to take a look. I nodded. Not agreeing. Not refusing. Just acknowledging. It's a really nice place, she continued. Private rooms, activities, medical staff on site. You'd actually enjoy it. Enjoy. I turned my eyes back to the window. I'm sure I would, I said. She stood there for a moment. Waiting. For something. A reaction, maybe. But I had learned something over the years. Silence makes people uncomfortable. And uncomfortable people talk. Well, she added after a second, it's just temporary anyway. Until everything is settled. Everything. Behind her, Michael appeared in the doorway. He had that look again. The one that didn't quite belong to him. Half certain. Half somewhere else. What's temporary? I asked. Karen answered before he could. Just the living arrangement, she said quickly. Once the house is sold and the accounts are reorganized, we'll figure out something more permanent. Sold. The word landed quietly. But it stayed. I turned my head. Looked at Michael. This house? I asked. He hesitated. Just for a second. Then nodded. It makes sense, Mom, he said. It's too much for one person. Too much. I let out a slow breath. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just enough. Your father built this house, I said. Karen stepped in again. Exactly, she said. And now I can help support you. Support. Another kind word. When it's true. I studied her face. Perfect makeup. Perfect expression. Perfect timing. You've thought about this a lot, I said. She smiled. We've been discussing it for a while. I looked back at Michael. He didn't say anything this time. And in that silence, something became very clear. This wasn't new. This wasn't something they came up with after Daniel died. This had been building. Quietly. Carefully. For how long? I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Instead, I stood up. Slowly. My head is a little tired, I said. I think I'll rest for a bit. Karen nodded quickly. Of course. You've been through so much. So much. I walked past them. Down the hallway. Into the bedroom. Closed the door. And for the first time since the funeral, I locked it. The room still smelled like Daniel. Faint. But there. I sat on the edge of the bed. Looked at the dresser. The mirror. The woman staring back at me. She looked the same. But she wasn't. I opened the drawer beside the bed. Reached inside. Pulled out the small leather notebook Daniel used to keep. He wrote in it every now and then. Not daily. Not regularly. Just when something mattered. I flipped through the pages. Dates. Notes. Short entries. And then I found it. A page I hadn't seen before. No date. Just a sentence. If anything happens to me, make sure you speak to Harrison. Don't trust anyone else with the documents. Harrison. The name settled in my mind. Familiar. But distant. Daniel's lawyer. We hadn't spoken in years. I closed the notebook. Held it in my hands for a moment. Then I stood up. Walked to the closet. reached for my coat. I didn't tell them where I was going. I didn't need to. In the kitchen, Karen looked up as I passed. Going somewhere? She asked. Just some fresh air, I said. She nodded, but her eyes followed me. Careful. Watching. Good. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. The air was cooler than I expected. Sharp. Clear. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing. Then I walked to the car. The same car Daniel insisted we keep, even when Michael suggested upgrading. Simplicity lasts longer, he used to say. I started the engine. Hands steady. Because now, I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't wondering. I wasn't hoping they were wrong. I knew exactly what they were doing. And more importantly, I knew exactly who I needed to talk to. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced once in the rearview mirror. Karen was standing at the window, watching, still smiling. I smiled back, just slightly, because for the first time, I wasn't the one being watched. I was the one who had seen everything. Harrison's office hadn't changed. Same brick building, same narrow hallway, same faint smell of old paper and polished wood. I hadn't been there in years. Not since Daniel insisted we update our will after his second surgery. Just in case, he said. I told him not to talk like that. He smiled anyway. I parked across the street, sat in the car for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. Grief had made everything feel slow, heavy, like moving through water. But this felt different, clear, sharp. I stepped out of the car, closed the door, walked across the street without rushing. Inside, the receptionist looked up. She hesitated for a second. Then recognition softened her expression. Mrs. Carter? She asked. I nodded. It's been a while, she said gently. Yes, I replied. It has. She picked up the phone. He's here, she said after a moment. You can go in. The door to his office was slightly open. I knocked once, then stepped in. Harrison stood behind his desk. Older, a little thinner, but his eyes were the same. Sharp, observant. Margaret, he said quietly. No pity, no overreaction. Just my name. I'm sorry about Daniel, he added. I nodded. Thank you. He gestured toward the chair. Sit. I did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out the copy of the document Karen had left on the counter, placed it on his desk. I was asked to sign this, I said. He didn't touch it right away. He looked at me first. Did you? He asked. No, a small pause. Then he picked up the paper. His eyes moved quickly, line by line. The room was quiet, except for the faint sound of the clock on the wall. After a few seconds, his expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. Where did you get this? He asked. From my kitchen counter, I replied. He looked at the paper again, then back at me. Did they explain it to you? I shook my head. They said it would make things easier. He let out a slow breath, leaning back slightly in his chair. This, he said, tapping the document lightly, would transfer full financial control of your assets to your son. I didn't react, not outwardly. And this section here, he continued, pointing to a paragraph near the bottom, would authorize the sale of the property. The house. I nodded once. They also mentioned a temporary living arrangement, I said. Harrison's jaw tightened. Just slightly. I see, he replied. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was confirmation. I found Daniel's original will, I said. That got his full attention. Where? He asked. In the house, I replied. Where he left it. He nodded slowly. Good, he said. One word. But it carried weight. Because this, he lifted the document again. This only works if you don't know what you already have. I held his gaze. I assumed as much, I said. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Not amused. Not exactly. Just acknowledging. Daniel was very specific, he said. He made sure everything was protected. Protected. He anticipated this? I asked. Harrison didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, set it on the desk. You weren't the only one he trusted, he said. He opened it, turned it toward me. Inside were copies. Documents. Official. Stamped. Your name, he said, pointing, is the sole beneficiary of all primary assets. I read it carefully. No transfer of ownership can occur without your explicit consent, he continued. And even then, he tapped another page. There are conditions. Conditions. Any attempt to manipulate, coerce, or misrepresent your consent, he said, invalidates the transfer entirely. I looked up. Meaning? I asked. He met my eyes. Meaning if they're trying to pressure you into signing this, a pause. They lose everything. The words settled slowly. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. I sat back in the chair, letting it sink in. They seemed very confident, I said after a moment. Harrison closed the folder. They're counting on you not asking questions, he replied. A small silence. Then, what do you want to do? Simple question. But it mattered. I thought about the kitchen, the white mug, the open mail, the quiet conversations. Karen's smile. Michael's silence. I want to understand how far they're willing to go, I said. Harrison watched me carefully. And after that, he asked. I folded my hands in my lap. Then I'll decide what they deserve. Another pause. Then he nodded. All right, he said. Then we do this properly. He reached for a pen. Made a note. You don't refuse, he said. Not yet. I listened. You don't confront them, he continued. You let them believe everything is going according to their plan. I nodded slightly. And when the time is right, he added. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I stood up. Thank you, I said. He inclined his head. Daniel knew what he was doing, he said quietly. He just needed you to see it when the time came. I turned toward the door, then stopped. One more thing, I said. He looked up. Do they know about these conditions? Harrison shook his head. No, he said. Good. I opened the door, stepped out into the hallway, and as I walked back to my car, the weight I had been carrying since the funeral shifted, not gone, but no longer crushing, because now, this wasn't just grief anymore. This was a plan, and this time, I wasn't the one being led. I was the one setting the stage. When I got back home, the house looked exactly the same. Same driveway, same curtains, same soft light coming through the windows. But I didn't walk in the same way. I opened the front door slowly, let it close behind me without a sound. Karen was in the kitchen. Of course she was. She turned the moment she heard the door. That smile again. Always ready. Always waiting. There you are, she said lightly. I was starting to wonder where you went. I set my keys down on the table. I needed some air, I replied. She studied me for a second. Not long. Just enough. Then she nodded. Of course, she said. That makes sense. Michael wasn't home yet. That gave her space. Too much space. I was actually just reviewing some things, she added, tapping the folder on the counter. The same one. I glanced at it. Briefly. Then away. Important things? I asked. She smiled. Just making sure everything is ready for you. Ready. For me. I repeated. Yes, she said smoothly. So you don't have to worry about anything. That sentence again. I walked past her. Opened the cabinet. Reached for a glass. The water ran quietly from the sink. Clear. Steady. Behind me, I could feel her watching. You didn't sign it yet, she said after a moment. Not a question. I turned the faucet off. Set the glass down. I wanted to read it carefully, I said. A pause. Of course, she replied quickly. That's smart. Smart. I turned around. Looked at her. Really looked. You've been handling a lot lately, I said. Her expression softened. Just slightly. Well, someone has to, she answered. Someone has to. I nodded. I appreciate that, I said. And I meant it. In a way. Because people like Karen. They don't rush. They build. Slowly. Carefully. And now I could see it. Every small change. Every quiet decision. Every moment she stepped in, before I had the chance. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. The front door opened. Michael walked in. He looked between us. Sensed something. Everything okay? He asked. Karen smiled immediately. Of course, she said. We were just talking. He nodded. But his eyes lingered on me. I was thinking, I said, turning slightly toward him. We could go over the paperwork together tonight. Karen's reaction was subtle. A flicker. Gone in a second. That's a great idea, she said quickly. Michael hesitated. Then nodded. Yeah, that makes sense. I picked up the folder. Held it lightly in my hands. After dinner, I added. Karen stepped closer. Just a little. I can walk you through everything, she said. It's really quite simple once you understand it. Simple. I'm sure it is, I replied. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where every sound feels louder than it should. The clink of a fork. The shift of a chair. The breath before someone speaks, and then doesn't. Karen filled the silence when it stretched too long. Talking about small things. Safe things. Michael listened. Answered when needed. I watched. Not just what they said, but how. The glances. The pauses. The way Karen answered questions that weren't directed at her. the way Michael let her. After dinner, we moved to the living room. The folder sat on the table between us. Karen opened it. Smooth. Confident. "This first section," she began, "just transfers account management so we can handle bills more efficiently." I nodded slowly. "And here," she continued, turning the page, "is the property authorization. Just in case we decide to move forward with selling. Just in case." Michael shifted in his seat. "And this part," she pointed again, "ensures everything is streamlined legally." Streamlined. I leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask something?" I said. "Of course," Karen replied. "What happens if I don't sign it?" The room went still. Not dramatically. Just enough. Karen's smile held. But it changed. Just a little. "Well," she said carefully, "things would just be more complicated." Complicated. Michael looked down. I nodded. "I see," I said. Then I reached for the pen. Held it between my fingers. Karen leaned in slightly. Watching. Michael didn't move. I lowered the pen to the paper. Paused. Just for a second. Long enough. Then I looked up. "Tomorrow," I said. Karen blinked. "I'll sign it tomorrow," I continued. "I'm a little tired tonight." A pause. Then the smile returned. "Of course," she said quickly. "No rush. No rush." But I could see it. The tension beneath the surface. The calculation. They thought they were close. Very close. I closed the folder. Set it back on the table. "Good night," I said, standing up. Michael looked up. "Good night, Mom." Karen nodded. "Sleep well." I walked down the hallway. Slow. Steady. Closed my door. Locked it. And in the quiet of that room, I allowed myself one small smile. Because tomorrow was exactly what I needed. Not for them. For me. Because they were preparing for a signature. And I was preparing for something else entirely. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. There's a difference. The house was still. No footsteps. No voices. No quiet conversations behind closed doors. Just the sound of the clock in the hallway. Ticking. Steady. I got out of bed slowly. Smoothed the blanket behind me. The way I always had. Daniel used to say you could tell a lot about a person by how they left a room. Whether they expected to come back. I always did. I walked to the kitchen. Karen wasn't there yet. That was new. The counters were clean. Too clean. No coffee brewing. No movement. For a moment, it almost felt like my house again. I opened the cabinet. Reached for my mug. The blue one. It was back. Exactly where it used to be. I held it in my hands for a second. Ran my thumb along the small chip on the rim. Something small. Something almost invisible. But real. I set it down gently. Started the coffee. Simple things. They remind you of who you are. Footsteps came from the hallway. Light. Measured. Karen. She stopped when she saw me. Just for a second. "Oh," she said. "You're up early." "I couldn't sleep," I replied. She nodded. Walked in. Her eyes moved across the kitchen. Quick. Observing. Noticing. The mug. I saw it. The flicker. Gone just as fast. "I was going to make coffee," she said. "I already did," I answered. A pause. Then she smiled. "Of course you did." Michael came in a few minutes later. Hair slightly messy. Still waking up. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied. Karen stepped closer to him. Quiet. Close. "Today's the day," she murmured. He didn't answer. But he didn't disagree either. I poured the coffee. Set 3 cups on the table. Sat down. My chair. Michael hesitated when he saw it. Just for a second. Then he took the one across from me. Karen sat beside him. The folder was already on the table. Of course it was. "I thought we could take care of everything this morning," Karen said lightly. "Before the day gets busy." "Busy?" I nodded. "That works," I said. My voice was calm. Even. I reached for the folder. Opened it. The papers were exactly where she left them. Organized. Prepared. She had done this before. Maybe not with me. But before. "Just sign here," she said, pointing to the line. Simple. Direct. I picked up the pen. Held it. Felt its weight. Michael watched me. Not Karen. Me. I lowered the pen. Paused. Then I looked up. "Before I sign," I said, "I have a question." Karen's smile stayed. But her shoulders tightened. "Of course," she said. "If I sign this," I continued, "everything transfers immediately?" "Yes," she answered. "Too quickly." "And the house?" I asked. "A beat. It gives us the ability to sell it," she said carefully. "Us." I nodded slowly. "And where would I go?" Silence. Not long. But long enough. "We talked about this," Karen said gently. The community I mentioned. Just for a while. Just for a while. Michael shifted again. It's a good place, Mom, he added quietly. I looked at him. Really looked. Have you seen it? I asked. He hesitated. No, he admitted. I nodded. Of course. I placed the pen down. Not away. Just down. I think I'd like to see it first, I said. Karen blinked. See what? She asked. The place, I replied. Where I'm supposed to live. A pause. Well, we have an appointment tomorrow, she said. Then we can sign after that, I said. Simple. Reasonable. Normal. Karen's smile didn't disappear. But it tightened. That's not really necessary, she said. We can always cancel if you don't like it. Cancel. I shook my head slightly. I'd feel better seeing it first, I said. Michael looked between us. Then nodded. Yeah, he said. That makes sense. Karen didn't respond right away. She was thinking. Calculating. Adjusting. Then, all right, she said. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. I closed the folder. Pushed it gently back toward her. Tomorrow, I repeated. The rest of the morning moved slowly. Too politely. Too carefully. Karen stayed busy. Phone in hand. Messages sent. Plans adjusted. Michael left earlier than usual. Without finishing his coffee. I stayed at the table. Alone. The clock ticked. Steady. Unbothered. I finished my coffee. Rinsed the mug. Put it back exactly where it belonged. Then I walked to the living room. Sat by the window. Same chair. Same light. But everything felt different now. Not uncertain. Not heavy. Clear. Because tomorrow. They thought they were getting closer. A signature. A transfer. Control. But tomorrow wasn't for them. It was the moment everything would begin to shift. And this time, I wasn't reacting. I was guiding every step. Quietly. Carefully. Exactly the way they thought they were. The next day arrived quietly. No tension. No raised voices. No sudden changes. Just calm. Too calm. I got dressed slowly. Chose something simple. A beige coat. Comfortable shoes. Nothing that drew attention. Karen noticed. Of course she did. That's perfect, she said with a small smile. You'll want to be comfortable today. Comfortable. I nodded. Michael was already by the door, keys in hand. He looked like he hadn't slept much. Ready? He asked. I picked up my bag. Yes, I said. The drive was quiet. Karen sat in the passenger seat. Michael drove. I sat in the back. Like a passenger. In my own life. They spoke occasionally. Small things. Directions. Traffic. Nothing important. But I watched. The way Karen leaned slightly toward Michael when she spoke. The way he nodded without really thinking. Familiar patterns. The building came into view after about 20 minutes. Clean. Modern. Neatly landscaped. The sign out front read, Silver Pines Living Community. Karen turned slightly in her seat. You'll like this place, she said. It's very well reviewed. Reviewed. I looked out the window. It was nice. Too nice. The kind of place designed to feel like something else. Not a home, but close enough to pass. We stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of lavender. Soft music played somewhere in the background. A woman at the front desk greeted us with a bright smile. Welcome, she said. You must be here for the tour. Karen stepped forward immediately. Yes, we have an appointment. We. The woman nodded. Right this way. She led us down a wide hallway. Doors on both sides. Some open. Some closed. Inside, I caught glimpses. A woman sitting alone, staring at a television that wasn't on. A man asleep in a chair, his hands folded in his lap. Another woman looking out the window, not really seeing anything. We kept walking. This is our common area, the guide said cheerfully. Residents can socialize, join activities, enjoy meals together. Her voice was smooth. Practiced. Karen nodded along. Engaged. Interested. Michael stayed quiet. I looked around. Everything was clean. Organized. Controlled. Nothing out of place. Nothing personal. We stopped in front of a room. This would be yours, the guide said, opening the door. Inside was a small space. A bed. A chair. A dresser. A window. Neat. Simple. Empty. Karen stepped in first. It's lovely, she said. Lovely. I stood at the doorway. Didn't move. Didn't step inside. This is where I would live? I asked. The guide smiled. Yes. And you can personalize it however you like. Personalize. I nodded slowly. Michael shifted behind me. It's not permanent, Mom, he said. Just until things settle. Settle. I turned slightly. Looked at him. And where would I go after that? I asked. He didn't answer. Karen did. We'll figure that out when the time comes. When the time comes. I stepped into the room, walked to the window, looked outside. A small garden, benches, a path, people sitting, not talking, just sitting. I placed my hand on the windowsill. Cold. Real. Then I turned around. I've seen enough, I said. Karen blinked. Oh, she said. Already. I nodded. Yes. The guide smiled politely. Well, if you have any questions, I don't, I said gently. A pause. Then Karen stepped in again. We'll talk it over, she said quickly. Thank you so much. The tour ended. We walked back through the hallway. Same doors. Same silence. But this time, I noticed something else. The way people looked at us. Not curious. Not welcoming. Just watching. Like they had seen this before. Many times. Back in the car, no one spoke at first. Then Karen asked. I looked out the window. It's very nice, I said. Relief. Immediate. I knew. You'd like it, she replied. Michael exhaled quietly. But it's not my home, I added. Silence. Not soft this time. Sharp. Karen turned slightly. It doesn't have to be forever, she said. I nodded. I understand, I replied. The rest of the drive passed without conversation. When we got home, I stepped out of the car slowly. Looked at the house. The same house. But now, I saw it clearly. Not as a memory. Not as something tied to the past. But as something they wanted. Something they were already planning to take. I walked inside. Set my bag down. Karen followed. So, she said carefully. Should we go ahead and finalize everything today? There it was. The moment. I turned to her. Smiled. Yes, I said. Her eyes lit up. Michael looked at me. Searching. Let's finish it, I continued. Because now, they believed they had everything. My agreement. My trust. My signature. But what they didn't understand was that today wasn't the end of their plan. It was the beginning of mine. Karen didn't wait. The moment I said yes, she moved. The folder was already in her hands before I even sat down. Let's just take care of this while everything is fresh, she said lightly. Fresh. I nodded. Sat in my chair. Michael stood for a second, then slowly took his seat across from me. Not beside Karen. Across from me. Interesting. Karen opened the folder. Turned the pages with practiced ease. Every movement smooth. Every step rehearsed. This won't take long, she said. I didn't respond. I just watched. Because now, I wasn't looking at the paper. I was looking at them. Here, she said, sliding the document toward me. Just sign at the bottom. I picked up the pen. Held it. Same moment as before. But this time, everything was different. Because now I knew exactly what each line meant. Every word. Every intention behind it. Michael cleared his throat. You okay, Mom? He asked. I looked up. Met his eyes. Yes, I said. And for a second, he almost believed me. I lowered the pen. Sign my name. Slowly. Clearly. Margaret Carter. The ink settled into the paper. Karen leaned forward immediately. Eyes scanning the signature. Relief. Real this time. Perfect, she said quickly, pulling the document back toward her. Perfect. She flipped to the next page. And just one more here, she added. Of course there was. I signed again. And again. Each time slower than the last. Not because I was unsure. Because I wanted them to feel it. The waiting. The anticipation. Michael shifted in his seat. His fingers tapped lightly against his leg. Nervous. Karen didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and chose to ignore it. When it was done, she gathered the papers carefully. Stacked them. Aligned them. Then she let out a small breath. It's done, she said. Just like that. Done. Michael looked at her. Then at me. That was easy, he said. Easy. I smiled. Yes, I said. It was. Karen stood up. Already moving. I'll make copies and send these over, she said, holding the folder close. Send them. I watched her walk into the other room. Heard the faint sound of a printer. Paper feeding. Ink pressing. Michael stayed where he was. Silent. Then, Mom, I looked at him. Yes. He hesitated. Like he wanted to say something. Something real. But instead, he just nodded. Nothing, he said. Nothing. I leaned back in my chair. Studied his face. The same face I used to kiss goodnight. The same eyes that used to look at me like I was the answer to everything. Now, they looked unsure. Lost somewhere between choice and consequence. Karen returned a few minutes later. All set, she said, placing the folder neatly on the table again. Neatly, like everything else she touched. I'll take care of the rest, she added. The rest. I nodded. I'm sure you will, I said. She smiled. Satisfied. Victorious. You should rest, she said. It's been a big day. A big day? I stood up slowly. Yes, I said. I think I will. I walked down the hallway. Didn't rush. Didn't look back. But I could feel it. The shift. The way the house breathed differently now. Not mine anymore. At least, that's what they thought. Inside my room, I closed the door. Locked it. Sat on the edge of the bed. For a moment, I said nothing. Did nothing. Just listened. The faint hum of voices in the distance. Karen's voice, lighter now. Michael's, quieter. Relieved. They believed it was over. That everything had gone exactly the way they planned. I reached into my bag. Pulled out my phone. Scrolled through my contacts. Stopped at one name. Harrison. I pressed call. He picked. Up on the second ring. Margaret. It's done, I said. A pause. Then, did they push, he asked. Yes. Did you sign everything? I looked down at my hands. Still steady. Yes, I said. Another pause. Then good. Good. I let that word settle. They think they have control now, I added. I know, he replied. Silence. But not empty. Prepared. What's next? I asked. I could almost hear him lean back in his chair. They make their move, he said. And then? I asked. His voice lowered slightly. Then we take everything back. Everything. I ended the call. Set the phone down beside me. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel it. Not anger. Not sadness. Something colder. Clearer. Control. Because now, they believed the story was finished. Signed. Sealed. But what they didn't understand was that they had just stepped exactly where I needed them to. And soon, they would realize they hadn't taken anything from me. They had handed me everything I needed. The house was quieter that evening. Not empty. Not tense. Satisfied. That was the difference. Karen moved through the kitchen with a kind of lightness I hadn't seen before. Small movements. Faster. Looser. She hummed under her breath while she organized the papers again. Even though everything had already been signed. Michael sat on the couch. Phone in hand. Scrolling. But not really reading. Waiting. I stayed in my room longer than usual. Not hiding. Preparing. When I finally stepped out, the hallway felt different beneath my feet. Like something had already shifted. Karen looked up immediately. There you are, she said. I was just about to check on you. I nodded. I'm fine. She studied my face for a moment, making sure. Then she smiled again. Everything's taken care of, she said. Taken care of. I walked into the living room. Sat down in my chair. Michael looked up. You feeling okay? He asked. Yes, I said. He nodded. But he didn't look convinced. Good. Karen joined us a moment later, holding her phone. I spoke to the agent, she said casually. Agent. I didn't react. They can come by tomorrow afternoon, she continued. Just to take a look at the house. Just to take a look. Michael shifted. That fast? He asked. Karen shrugged lightly. The market is good right now, she said. We shouldn't wait. I folded. My hands in my lap. Tomorrow works, I said. Both of them looked at me, slightly surprised. You're okay with that? Michael asked. I met his eyes. Yes. A pause. Then Karen smiled. Perfect, she said. That makes everything easier. Easier. The same word. Again. Dinner that night was different. Not quiet. Lighter. Karen talked more. Michael responded more. They weren't careful anymore. They didn't need to be. Not in their minds. I listened. Not to the words. To the space between them. The confidence. The assumption. The belief that everything had already been decided. After dinner, Karen cleared the table quickly. I'll handle this, she said. She always did. I stood by the doorway. Watched her. You've done a lot, I said. She paused. Turned toward me. It's nothing, she replied. I just want to make things smooth for everyone. Smooth. I nodded. I'm sure you do, I said. She held my gaze for a second longer than usual, then smiled again. Later that night, I heard them talking. Not loudly, but not as quietly as before. Their door was slightly open. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. Their voices carried. Once the house sells, everything will fall into place, Karen said. Michael's voice followed. Lower. Less certain. And Mom. A pause. She'll adjust, Karen replied. Adjust. Another pause. We're doing this for her, she added. For her. I kept walking. Didn't stop. Didn't react. But something inside me settled completely. No doubt. No confusion. Just clarity. The next morning came quickly. Karen was already dressed. Phone in hand. Moving. The agent will be here at 2, she said. I nodded. Michael left early. Again, avoiding something. Or himself. I spent the morning in the living room. Same chair. Same light. But I wasn't watching the driveway anymore. I was waiting. At exactly 1:45, a car pulled up. Right on time. Karen straightened immediately. They're here, she said. She smoothed her hair. Checked her reflection. Prepared. I stood up slowly. Walked toward the door. Karen got there first. Opened it with a bright smile. Welcome, she said warmly. A man stepped inside. Suit. Folder. Professional. Thank you, he replied. His eyes moved through the house quickly. Assessing. Measuring. Noticing. This is a beautiful property, he said. Karen nodded. It really is, she replied. Was. He began walking through the rooms. Karen followed closely, pointing things out. Explaining. Michael. Wasn't there. Just us. And a stranger evaluating what used to be my life. I followed at a distance. Quiet. Observing. When he reached the living room, he stopped. Looked around carefully. Then turned to Karen. Everything seems in order, he said. Order. She smiled. Of course, she replied. Then he turned to me. And you must be Mrs. Carter, he said. I nodded. Yes. He stepped closer. Professional. Polite. I'll need to confirm a few things with you directly, he said. Karen stepped in immediately. I've already explained everything. He raised a hand slightly. Of course, he said calmly. But I still need confirmation from the owner. Owner. The word hung in the air. Karen's smile didn't disappear. But it changed. Just slightly. I looked at him. Of course, I said. Because this was the moment Harrison had been waiting for. And they didn't even see it coming. The room shifted. Not visibly. Not loudly. But I felt it. The moment he said that word, owner. Karen's smile stayed in place. But her fingers tightened slightly around the folder she was holding. I've already explained everything, she said again, softer this time. The man nodded politely. I understand, he replied. But I still need to hear it directly. Directly. From me. I stepped forward. Slow. Unhurried. Yes, I said. What would you like to confirm? He opened his folder. Pulled out a document. Professional. Precise. Just a few standard questions, he said. Standard. Karen shifted beside him. Trying to stay close. Trying to stay in control. This property, he began, glancing at the paper, is currently listed under your name, correct? I nodded. Yes. He made a small note. And any decisions regarding its sale require your full and informed consent. Consent. I could feel Karen's eyes on me. Yes, I said again. Another note. And you are not under any pressure or obligation to transfer ownership or authorize sale at this time. There it was. The question. Simple. But not really. Karen stepped forward. Just slightly. Of course she's not, she said quickly. We've talked everything through. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. Waiting. I let the silence stretch. Just a little. Long enough. Then I spoke. I signed some documents yesterday, I said. Karen exhaled. Almost relieved. Yes, she added quickly. We handled all of that. I raised my hand. Not sharply. Just. Enough. And she stopped. I signed them. I continued. Because I was told it would make things easier. The man nodded slowly. I see, he said. His pen hovered over the page. And did you fully understand the contents of those documents at the time of signing? Karen's voice came faster now. She reviewed everything, she said. We made sure. I'm asking her, he said calmly. Silence. Real silence this time. All eyes on me. I looked at the paper in his hand. Then at Karen. Then at Michael, who had just walked in and stopped near the doorway. He hadn't expected this. None of them had. I turned back to the man. No, I said. One word. Clear. Karen froze. Michael didn't move. I didn't fully understand. I continued. Not at the time. The man nodded again. Slower now. And were you given independent legal advice before signing? Karen stepped forward. We didn't think that was necessary. I'm asking her, he repeated. His voice still calm. But firmer now. I met his eyes. No, I said. Another note. Another shift. Karen's smile was gone now. Not completely. But enough. This is being taken out of context, she said quickly. We were just trying to help. I'm sure you were. The man replied politely. But he didn't look at her. He closed his folder. Given this information, he said, turning to me, I'm unable to proceed with any evaluation or listing at this time. Unable. Karen blinked. I don't understand, she said. He faced her now. Any transfer of control or authorization under unclear or pressured circumstances raises legal concerns, he explained. Until everything is properly reviewed, this process is paused. Paused. Michael stepped forward. What does that mean? He asked. It means, the man said calmly, that nothing moves forward. Nothing. Silence filled the room. Heavy now? Real. Karen looked at me. Not smiling. Not soft. Sharp. You said you wanted to do this, she said. I held her gaze. I said I would sign, I replied. A pause. I didn't say I understood. Her expression hardened. That's not fair, she said. Fair. I nodded slightly. No, I said. It isn't. The man gathered his things. I recommend you consult legal counsel before taking any further steps, he added. Then he turned to me. Mrs. Carter, he said, nothing has been finalized. Finalized. I nodded. Thank you, I said. He left without another word. The door closed. And just like that, the room felt different. Not controlled. Not certain. Unsteady. Karen turned to Michael. Say something, she snapped. He didn't. He looked at me instead. Confused. Searching. Mom, what just happened? He asked. I didn't answer right away. I walked past them. Back to my chair. Sat down. Calm. Steady. What happened? I said finally. Is that someone asked the right questions? Karen let out a sharp breath. You're making this complicated, she said. Complicated. I looked at her. No, I said. I'm making it clear. Silence. The kind that doesn't go away quickly. Because now, they weren't in control anymore. Not of the house. Not of the process. And definitely not of me. And this was only the beginning of what they were about to lose. No one moved after the door closed. Not immediately. It was like the house itself was waiting. For someone to say something. For someone to take control again. But no one did. Karen stood near the table, still holding the folder. But now, it didn't look like something she controlled. It looked like something slipping. This is ridiculous, she said finally. Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It was tight. Sharp. Michael ran a hand through his hair. Karen, he started. No, she cut in. This is not what we agreed on. Agreed. I stayed where I was. Calm. Watching. I didn't agree to anything, I said quietly. She turned to me immediately. You signed the papers, she snapped. I nodded. Yes. Her eyes narrowed. Then why would you say you didn't understand them? She demanded. Simple question. But not really. I folded my hands in my lap. Because I didn't, I said. Silence. Heavy. Michael looked between us. Mom, you read them, he said. Did I? I tilted my head slightly. I read words, I replied. A pause. That doesn't mean I was told the truth. Karen let out a short laugh. Oh, come on, she said. We explained everything. Did you? I looked at her. You told me it would make things easier, I said. That's the same thing, she shot back. I shook my head. No, I said. It isn't. Michael stepped forward. Okay, let's just slow down, he said. Slow down. Now. After everything. Karen turned to him. You're seriously taking her side? She asked. Side. Michael hesitated. I'm not taking sides, he said. I don't understand what's happening. That made two of them. Or maybe just one. Karen looked back at me. Her expression had changed now. No more softness. No more patience. Just frustration. You're making this difficult for no reason, she said. No reason. I stood up slowly. Walked toward her. Not close. Just enough. There is a reason, I said. She crossed her arms. Then say it, she challenged. I held her gaze. You wanted control, I said. The words landed quietly. But they stayed. Michael's head turned toward her. Karen didn't flinch. We wanted to help you, she said. Help. I nodded. And to do that, I continued. You needed me out of the way. That's not true, she snapped. Isn't it? I asked. Silence. Not from her. From Michael. He didn't speak. Didn't defend. Didn't deny. Karen looked at him. Say something, she said again. But this time, her voice wasn't confident. It was urgent. Michael swallowed. I thought it was just temporary, he said. Temporary. Karen stared at him. That's what I told you, she said quickly. He shook his head slightly. No, he said. You said once the house sold, everything would be easier. Easier. The word again. But now, it sounded different. Karen's expression tightened. You're twisting this, she said. Am I? I stepped back slightly. Gave them space. Because this part didn't belong to me. It belonged to them. To the truth they hadn't said out loud yet. I trusted you, Michael said quietly. Karen's eyes widened. I'm your wife, she replied. Of course you trust me. He shook his head. I trusted you with her, he said. A pause. And now, I don't know what's real. The room went still again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was something breaking. Karen looked at me. Blame. Sharp. This is what you wanted, she said. Wanted. I met her eyes. No, I said. This is what you built. Silence. Deep. Final. She looked away first. Michael sat down slowly, hands on his knees, staring at the floor. The house felt different now. Not controlled. Not planned. Exposed. Because everything they tried to keep quiet was now out in the open, and there was no way to put it back. I turned toward the window. Same light. Same room. But nothing was the same anymore. Behind me, Karen spoke again. Quieter now. We can fix this, she said. Fix. No one answered. Because some things, once you see them clearly, you can't pretend you didn't. And now, they were both seeing it. Exactly as it was. And exactly what it was about to cost them. No one spoke after that. Not for a long time. The kind of silence that doesn't ask to be filled. The kind that settles and stays. Karen was the first to move. She picked up the folder from the table. Not carefully this time. Not neatly. Just grabbed it. I need some air, she said. But she didn't wait for a response. She walked past us. Faster than usual. The door closed behind her. Harder than it needed to. And just like that, she was gone. Michael didn't follow. He stayed where he was. Sitting. Still. I didn't speak. I walked back to my chair. Sat down slowly. The same chair. The same place I had sat for years. But now, it felt different. Not because of the room. Because of me. Michael finally looked up. His eyes were tired. Mom, he said. I waited. I didn't know it was going to be like this, he added. Like this. I nodded. I know, I said. And I did. That was the hardest part. He wasn't cruel. He was quiet. And sometimes, that's worse. He stood up slowly. Walked closer. I thought we were helping you, he said. Helping. I looked at him. You were helping someone, I said. A pause. But it wasn't me. He didn't argue. Didn't defend. Because deep down, he knew. I should have asked more questions, he said quietly. Yes, he should have. But it was too late for that now. I stood up. Walked past him. Toward the hallway. Mom, he called after me. I stopped. But I didn't turn around. What happens now, he asked. Simple question. But not really. I thought about it. Not emotionally. Clearly. The house stays, I said. A pause. And everything else, I turned slightly. Looked at him. Gets handled properly. Properly. He nodded. Slow. Like he understood what that meant. Or at least, what it didn't mean anymore. That evening was quiet. Truly quiet. No pretending. No planning. Just space. Karen didn't come back that night. Michael stayed in the living room. Lights off. I stayed in my room. Door unlocked. For the first time in days. The next morning, I made coffee. In my mug. The blue one. I sat by the window. Same light. Same chair. But the air felt different. Clear. Not heavy. Not uncertain. Just still. My phone rang. I already knew who it was. Harrison, I answered. Everything all right? He asked. I looked around the room. At the walls. The photos. The life that was still here. Yes, I said. A pause. Are you ready to move forward? He asked. I thought about Karen. Her smile. Her certainty. Her plan. I thought about Michael. His silence. His hesitation. His choice. And then I thought about Daniel. The way he prepared. The way he trusted me to see it when the time came. I am, I said. Another pause. Good, Harrison replied. Then we'll make sure everything is exactly where it belongs. Exactly. I ended the call. Set the phone down. And just sat there for a moment. Breathing. Not deeply. Not heavily. Just normally. Because that's what this was now. Not a fight. Not a reaction. A reset. Michael came into the kitchen slowly. He looked different. Not broken. But quieter. More aware. Morning, he said. Morning, I replied. He hesitated. Then, I'm sorry, he said. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I saw my son again. Not someone being led. Not someone avoiding. Just him. I know, I said. And that was enough. We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. Because some things don't need to be explained. They just need to be seen. And finally, they were. I picked up my coffee. Took a slow sip. The same taste. But this time, it felt right again. Because in the end, they thought I would be left with nothing. But what they didn't understand was that I was never the one losing anything. I was the one who had been paying attention, waiting. And when the moment came, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fight. I simply let the truth speak for itself. And in doing that, I didn't just keep my home. I took back my place in it.